Alright, one little package today. It's weird to finally have a normal-esque week, I guess, after all these weeks of delays and stuff. But let's see. First of all, we've got Typhoon Noruda. I guess this one was a Blu-ray only release. I'll have to double check that. You see, it's approximately 26 minutes, English dubbed, region A only. At the eye of the storm, at the center of the tempest, they will find her. So this one's an interesting curiosity, and at only 20 minutes, and that's means it's kind of easy to just check it out and maybe enjoy it. So we have interesting watercolor, I think. Nothing that's really inside. Nice and simple. A nice and simple little release. Next up, we've got Ace Attorney Part 1, Episodes 1 through 13. And, I wonder if I actually am going to watch this. I'm kind of curious because I've never actually played the games, but I have watched walkthroughs of the games. And they seem actually pretty neat and fun. It'd probably be fun to actually play them. And, there's what was his name? Edgar? I don't remember her name. Was it Mia? I don't know. That's the problem with somebody. And then, of course, we got Phoenix. At least he looks like he's Phoenix, so I'm guessing he's Phoenix. Turnabout Promise. Interesting. The only unfortunate thing is, based on some of the images from the back, it looks like this might be a implementation of the first game, which is only unfortunate insofar as, it doesn't get into all the things. Jeez, I can't get that in place. So these are our Blu-rays, Part 1, Episodes 1 through 9 and 10 through 13, and then Part 1, Episodes 1 through 7 and 8 through 13. Did I look at the imagery on the inside? Hold on. The loud cry of justice! This is one a few times. Oh, that's actually kind of neat putting that there. Justice! And last but not least, we have Terraformars. Complete Season 1 set. I got the impression this one may be a bit longer. See, who released this? Viz did. Okay. I saw Warner Brothers there. Maybe I see Warner Brothers on a lot of Viz releases. Maybe Viz is owned by Warner Brothers. Did I know this? Viz did not release Play Magic Madoka Magica. That was Aniplex. Oh, that's all weird stuff. Let's get this Blu-ray back into place. And you see, unlike Funimation's episode distribution, Viz maintains an equal distribution. Cockroaches. Yeah, so we got episodes 1 through 7 Blu-ray, episodes 8 through 13 Blu-ray, and then same thing DVD with a very empty background. Interesting. Anyways, that appears to be this week's anime DVD collection update. So, first up, I watched Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress. Kabaneri. Gosh, it feels like it's been so long since I watched it. But anyways, I watched it, and I think a good or an amusing alternative title to it would be Attack on Zombies. So yeah, some of my subscribers did mention that this was made by the same people who did Attack on Titan. And it's definitely not the same thing as Attack on Titan, but you definitely get the same, not the same feel as Attack on Titan per se, but rather the same, I don't know, execution feel whatever. The basic idea is you can kind of tell, but it's definitely not Attack on Titan itself. And there's both good and bad things about that. For starters, the general idea of the show is it's about people in a more feudal era Japan who basically turn into mindless animals. Oh, and there's zombies. The joke there being that, okay, there's these zombies, but the people in the town are kind of scummy assholes. The kind of standard stuff you'd see people who make assumptions. They might as well be hunting witches at the Salem witch trials or whatever they were called. I can't remember at the moment. But they get a lot of that out of their system in the first half of this season, so if there was more to it after this, it probably wouldn't be as continuing a problem. Actually, if there's any problem with it, it's a little too fast. Maybe because they didn't know whether or not they would get a second season. I think that's still unknown right now, but yeah, it almost feels like a little bit near the end was a little bit rushed, and it kind of even showed when there was a lot of story development still happening or finishing up or wrapping up on the last episode's credits, as opposed to, kind of spaced out a little bit more, which it's not done in a bad way. It's just something you kind of notice when you watch it. It's not a heavy critique. It's just it could be better if they did this. And I was going to say this is the best thing I watched this week, but I guess I don't know that for certain. I at least enjoyed it, and yeah, I was kind of curious where it would go after that, because it could be interesting. I said, I was comparing it to Attack on Titan, and kind of the main thing it doesn't have that Attack on Titan does, that gives Attack on Titan its draw, I think it's more general draw, is Attack on Titan is actually more of a mystery kinda, whereas this is definitely more of an action. They don't really introduce things for you to scratch your head and say, well, I guess I need to read the manga and see if that's explained, because Attack on Titan was very, very, very planned in order to reveal stuff at certain times as it goes through the series. Whereas this one, if there is mystery that they're wanting to play with, they haven't really dwelled on it enough for it to be prominent, but at the same time, it's not bad. Anyways, I also watched an episode in maybe a quarter of the Morose Mononokean, maybe not even a quarter. I guess, now, if it was just this series that I was watching after Kabaneri, it probably wouldn't have been an issue. I probably would have just continued watching, and maybe it gets better, but I kind of don't like the first episode, I guess. To try to place my finger on what I don't like about it, first of all, it tries to establish this thing where he's indebted to this guy, but any rational analysis of the situation would actually have it being a scam, and he's a fucking asshole scammer, and he's kind of asshole-ish in some of his stuff, but not too much. The problem is, if you have something like Ouran High School Host Club, the idea of the immeasurable debt is actually used to set up something else that's really fun, whereas this show hasn't established anything like that. This show hasn't established anything that would say, oh yes, this will be fun despite this other thing. Instead, it began the second episode by reminding us of it, when I'm not sure if that even happened in Ouran High School Host Club, because that show is about, it isn't about, oh, there's a debt owed. That one is about, okay, the debt is an excuse to create this situation, and the situation, which is fun, is what that one's about. And I don't know, I guess comparing the two's come up, and it'd be nice to rewatch Ouran High School Host Club again. As for this, like I said, I got into the second episode and I was feeling, I don't know. And a lot of that is because I spent a lot of the weekend watching Black Mirror. And I don't think I like Black Mirror. there's some elements of it that are neat explorations of stuff, but I also can't help but think that this show goes a little too far with some stuff, which makes me feel, you know, for me watching it, it feels like it's just shock horror for the sake of shock horror as opposed to trying to say stuff, and that's why it sets up situations that seem kind of impossible. I mean, here's a criticism of Netflix. Part of my mix of watching stuff was I was watching the first season. I thought there were 4 episodes, but I didn't know that there were only 3. So when the 3rd episode ended and went on to the 4th, I'm like, okay, I thought that I heard of this episode and that it was in the 4th season, but I guess it was in the 1st season at the very end. But that would make it a very notable episode, so I guess whatever. But then I paused it like 10 minutes into it to use the restroom, and oh wait, it's season 4, episode 1. So Netflix decided, hey, this person just finished watching season 1. Yeah, of course he wants to jump to season 4. And what happens when I watch season 2? Well, it jumped back to season 1. I don't know why Netflix can't get such a basic fucking thing right. I know it's not like the easiest thing in the world, but it's also not hard. It's just kind of hard to do in a universal, oh, everything just works perfectly way, depending on how you structure your data. But yeah, there were some things that were neat, but mostly it felt like it was trying to be shock value for the sake of shock value, not even like twist for the sake of twist. And because it was focused on that, a lot more people than needed to be were just simply fucking assholes. I mean, it isn't very, of the 8 episodes I watched, it seemed like, oh yeah, she's a cheating bitch. He's an insecure fucking asshole about it. The guy she's cheating with is some sort of douchebag. And sometimes it's mixing different ideas into one episode when it's fine just exploring one idea. And because it's mixing, it makes me think that, again, it's maybe more about shock value. Some of it just kind of distracts, I think, from even the message, which is why I guess I'm not going to watch the 3rd season. I'm not going to watch the rest of the 4th season. I just kind of lost my ability to tolerate it because I thought at a minimum it'd be something I could just have on in the background and absorb, but as each episode aired, I just got more and more frustrated, and that's not fun to watch. So obviously, I haven't talked about a second good thing. So the other good thing was the good show was I watched a couple episodes of the Orville. Now, I'm not saying it's definitely a good show. I'm not 100% sold on it being a good show, but I can see little elements here and there that makes me think, okay, this could be interesting. And episode per episode, I've only seen the first 2 episodes, it was actually entertaining enough. You do have to have a little tolerance for the Seth MacFarlane humor. Like, some things they could have done without going crude, there wouldn't be a need to go crude. Like, if you're not familiar with the show, it's basically kind of like a Star Trek-ish show, except made by Seth MacFarlane. So you may think that means, oh, it's just like Family Guy and there's not much to it, but in the 2 episodes, I've seen little bits and pieces that kind of suggest that they're trying to build something a bit bigger. There's a bit more of a narrative that it's not exactly an overarching story. Maybe we'll see something like that, but we've seen elements come up and things happen that are going to be repercussions in future episodes. One of which I'd actually heard a little bit about before and didn't even really think about until it happened. I'm like, oh yeah, I did hear about that. And it wasn't that spoiled if I didn't have the context from starting to blabber a little bit there. But the individual episodes, I was going to give an example on, it's like, okay, if it's like your Star Trek, then you have people who communicate with another ship or a planet or something like that, and they have it on the view screen. And they did that on the first episode, and there was a dog in the background on the couch licking its balls. And then the communication ends, and the people at the helms are going to say, yeah, you ever seen that before? It was a dog licking its balls on the view screen, or something
along those lines. I mean, it's crude and doesn't need to be crude because they could have just had a distracting dog in the background anyways, and instead of saying, oh, did you see the dog licking its balls, it's like, I didn't hear a thing the guy said. I was distracted by the cute dog in the corner. And that's where you kind of have to have some tolerance for it. You also have to have tolerance for physics that don't quite make sense, but if you've ever watched Star Trek, you kind of have to have some stomach for that. I think the first episode of Orville pushed it a little bit, and I don't want to talk about how it did because, you know, I want you to be able to watch the first episode and enjoy what happens or not. But I can say that at least with the pushing that they did, they had some fun with it. And it balanced out, not necessarily to, oh yes, this is super spectacular, I absolutely have to watch more of this no matter what, but it meant that the episode was enjoyable. And this is more in line with what I've heard, where you kind of connect a bit more with the characters. So I'm kind of hoping as I continue a couple more episodes, and I'm going to be watching this with my friends, so I don't even know when that's going to be. It's probably going to be Friday, but if it's not, then it's not. But I kind of, you know, expect to kind of care more about the characters because there's already good buds for some of that stuff. It's nice. And if you're wondering, well, I still don't like Family Guy, so why would I like the Orville? I kind of had I had a hypothesis going into it, and I think it panned out. See, the big difference between something like American Dad and Family Guy versus the Orville is the other two are animated, and with animated stuff, you can change the way the pacing works, you can change the way scenes unfold. So a really good example is Satoshi Kon, I think, really liked animation because you could show in fewer frames with animation something happening that the audience understands, like a wallet being thrown, versus a live action thing where you have to have more establishing shots. And in particular, the Orville involves real actors playing characters, so no matter what you do, you can't do certain things. You can't have things play out in certain speedy ways where it's just throwing stuff at you minute after minute. You have actual people talking, and at the same time they're gonna want to be invested in whatever character they're portraying, so they'll fall to stereotypes a whole lot better. You know, stereotypes that Family Guy and American Dad, the opposite stereotypes of those, where, you know, okay, yeah, you can have this character that just says a lot of stuff, 50,000 words per second or something like that, but you can't do that in the Orville because you need people to just be talking and to be sitting there on the camera talking, sort of like I am talking now. So I think that helps a lot. I mean, this is one thing where I never thought of Family Guy as being particularly painful until I tried, well, actually, I did binge watch the first season, and it kind of hurt to do. I guess you notice it better when you just watch it all at once versus, you know, oh, here's an episode this week and you missed last week's and you missed next week's, but yeah, every couple of weeks, whatever. And it's a small, intense fun, I guess, but Orville, it feels like you could probably actually binge this pretty well. So, overall, I guess I'm not sure if I enjoyed it more, what I watched of it more than Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress, because both of them, you know, they were just entertaining. Good things for me to watch, but I don't know, we'll have to see. Anyways, that's a whole lot of stuff. Again, I'm probably, unless somebody tells me, oh yes, Moros Mononoke gets better in the second, maybe the third episode, because usually you give things 3 episodes. Maybe I should actually give it 3 episodes. I'd be tempted to stick with, well, geez, I guess I have to wonder, because I think all 3 of the things that are out today may be notable. Terraformars, the name sounds very familiar for some reason. Maybe people were criticizing it, maybe people were liking it, but that means it's notable. And I'm very curious about Ace Attorney, and that Typhoon thing actually looks pretty cool, so probably more likely to watch those than a lot of stuff. Well, I don't know about a lot of stuff here. I'm trying to rip stuff, but there's something weird with my ripping setup right now, so it's slower, but I digress. Y'all have a nice week.